The notorious South African taxi industry, feared by the motorists, feared by pedestrians, and even feared by traffic officers. They are a law to themselves. Not even the Transport Minister can stand up to them. There's a documentary of the notorious and dangerous South African taxi industry. The story of the South African taxi industry is one of entrepreneurship and grit, and closely tied to the history of apartheid. Despite a turbulent history characterized by conflict with a nationalist government, between competing owners, and more recently with the current government over subsidies, the taxi industry now plays an essential role in fueling economic activity. Over 2/3 of South Africans rely on minibuses as their primary mode of transport. Minibus taxis get the majority of South Africans to and from work, to schools and universities, to shops and to social activities. The industry supports the growth of black entrepreneurs while providing hundreds of thousands of jobs. From as early as the 1930s, black entrepreneurs responded to the need for transport created by the apartheid government's efforts to locate black people on the outskirts of towns and cities, far from jobs, shops, and other economic activity. The industry has grown in a haphazard, highly informal and sometimes illegal way, yet has proved surprisingly efficient and responsive to commuter needs. Almost 100 years ago, the legal transportation of black South Africans by black people was made almost impossible. The 1930 Motor Carrier Transportation Act made it illegal to transport goods or passengers for profit without a permit, and for a black person in South Africa at the time, it was virtually impossible to acquire such a permit. This hostile environment continued for over 50 years under National Party rule, as the government imposed laws restricting black economic activity. Despite the discriminatory conditions, the minibus taxi industry was set in motion in response to the demand of black South Africans for public transport. After the industry was legalized and deregulated in the late 1980s, it grew rapidly to become the heart of South Africa's public transport system. An efficient public transport system is a core enabler of a country's economy and is critical to development. The taxi industry commands a turnover of 35 billion rands annually. The DOT Transport Survey reported that the road sector contributes 3.4% towards the GDP. The taxi industry is a major contributor. Long-distance operators can earn 37,000 rand in profit a month, according to SA Taxi's research. The average short-route operator on the 23 kilometers route between Soweto and Johannesburg can earn a profit of around 25,000 rands a month. This industry has come to be better defined through the term taxi war. The term refers to the turf wars fought between taxi associations and individual minibus taxi drivers in South Africa from the late 1980s onwards to the present. Due to an effectively unregulated market and the fierceness of competition for passengers and lucrative routes, taxi operators banded together to form local and national associations. These associations soon exhibited mafia-like tactics, including the hiring of hitmen and all-out gang warfare. Taxi operators must obtain a license from the relevant transport authority and also join or form a taxi association with permission to operate along certain registered routes. Taxi associations collectively manage traffic flows along their own routes with rank marshals, and to join an association can cost between 10,000 rands to 200,000 rands. We're not sure what differentiates the price across different associations. In this way, a taxi operator must first be part of an association in order to access a route and an operating license.
Commuters in Atteridgeville have been left stranded once again as taxi violence continued for the second straight day in the township. Taxi drivers from rival associations have been battling it out on the streets as they fight for control of routes between the Pretoria CBD and the township of Atteridgeville. The main roads leading into Atteridgeville were blocked off by taxi drivers from the Atteridgeville Taxi Association. They hoped the roadblock would destabilize the operations of their rivals, who they accuse of violence and intimidation. An Atteridgeville taxi operator spoke to EWN on condition that we conceal his identity. He says that taxi associations with roots in KwaZulu-Natal are using violence to intimidate local operators. He also claimed that the violence started yesterday because one of their members was badly beaten and is now fighting for his life in hospital.
This thing, let me explain it like this. Yesterday, one of our members, these people that came from KZN, they beat him to death, you understand? He's in ICU as we speak, so we never decided to strike. What we have done, we just wake up and close all the roads because we know that the community will help us, you understand? It's what we have done. So even now, as you can see, this Zulu boys or whatever, I don't know what can I call them, you understand? They are busy shooting at us, doing whatever that they want to do because of the thing they've got powers. Because of this store of us, they give them permission to come in Attersville and do whatever that it.
The issue becomes when taxi owners, who are called taxi bosses, turn to be greedy over routes that are more lucrative than others. The situation of violence becomes even more complicated in instances where the shortest route to a certain destination crosses on another taxi association turf. Since taxi bosses literally own the roads, permissions have to be asked and approvals have to be given, or else bullets will fly. Traffic officers sometimes try to act as if they have power and control over the roads, but that is not the case in South Africa. The roads are owned by the taxi industry. You are better off fearing a taxi marshal than a traffic officer. The taxi industry has made laws even for motorists. Motorists are not allowed to give people lifts. Should you be seen giving someone a lift, you will be fined up to 5,000 by the taxi marshal, or even worse, get assaulted. There are many instances where taxi marshal assault motorists, but even the police fear the taxi bosses. The taxi industry has become a law to themselves, feared even by the Transport Minister. The man on your screen is Ivory Park Taxi Association Chairman Johannes Mkhonza. He's one of the most feared taxi bosses in the country. He owns the Ivory Park route alone, meaning all the taxis in Ivory Park belong to him. It is not common for the entire township taxis to be owned by a single individual. Right next to Ivory Park, there's a township called Tembisa with multiple taxi bosses, like all other townships. But in Ivory, no one dares to challenge Ivory Park taxi boss and association chairman Johannes Mkhonza. There are many stories of attempts and all have failed, even attempts to take him out, but all have failed. As a result of many attempts on his life, he is protected more than your normal politicians. Sometimes he moves around not through vehicles on the roads, but on the air, with a helicopter for the safety of his life. With his residential house not known, and his family kept private, all that speaks to the violence that is in this industry. We are told there was once an attempt on his life. Hitman was sent to take him out. They were sent to kill him during a meeting with his taxi drivers at the rank. As he was sitting inside one taxi addressing the crowd, multiple gunmen started shooting at the taxi he was sitting in, spraying the taxi with bullets. AK-47s aimed towards his direction and shooting. Everyone who was in the taxi with the taxi boss died, but not him. He came out alive. Only him came out alive. He came out screaming, saying, "You cannot kill me. Who do you think you are? You will never kill me." As the gunmen were shocked as to how he survived, they just ran away. It is a story, of course. We don't know how true it is, but what I can tell you is he must be very feared to be the only taxi boss of a township in a violent country like South Africa. This brings us to the use of voodoo, but commonly called moody in South Africa. It is the use of witchcraft to protect oneself. It is very common in South Africa to use such sciences. This type of witchcraft can protect even from live bullets. Dark sciences are used in South Africa by criminals, which contribute to the high levels of crime, but our legal systems do not want to recognize the use of these sciences. The taxi industry and hitman in South Africa strive through these dark sciences and witchcraft. Whether you believe it or not, this is the reality of the world we live in. The South African taxi industry still remains the most powerful force in the country, with the power to shut down the economic activities of the country if they decide to strike. The government has tried to introduce legislation to the industry, but failed dismally. But I am not surprised, since politicians are also involved in this industry, with the former President Jacob Zuma's family involved in the taxi industry of KZN. So basically this industry is not for everyone. If maybe you are willing to kill or be killed, maybe it is for you, but definitely not for everyone. Thanks for watching the channel. Please like, share and subscribe.